So I remember my first day at eBay over 6 years ago, my first week. And when I start somewhere new, I like to, probably like all of you, get to know the team, get to know the people. I prefer not to do that in offices. Let's go out and actually work together, and let's see what we're actually dealing with. And so I'm sitting down with someone on the team. She turned out to be one of the best that we had. And she's explaining to me, what are you working on this week? And she's telling me that she's launching a global marketing campaign, a dynamic email marketing campaign. And I hadn't heard of that before. So, tell me about that. Well, the way it works is, we have these offers that we're going to make, and we have these different systems, and we're pulling data out about which customers we want to hit with this campaign, and then we're pulling data out of other systems for what the offer is going to be, and we're pulling even other data out of other systems from content management, what it's actually going to say. I'm like, darn, that's cool. I mean, that's just like really cool. Who knew that? And she's saying, oh yeah, it's really not that big a deal. We do it all the time. In fact, this week we're sending it out to 12.5 million people. Customers. You ever have that thing in the back of your neck? You should have asked more questions and you didn't, She seems so cool and confident about the whole thing. And I've been there a day or two, so what do I know? So we go ahead and launch it, and wouldn't you know, and I'm sure it's no coincidence at all, it was my first week at the company, we massively messed this thing up. And we sent millions of the wrong messages to the wrong customers with the wrong offers. And we flooded our global contact centers with volumes and questions and things that we couldn't even sort out for 3 days. And the beauty of it was, the marketing team that developed all of this said, we found the mistake, we know what we did, but we aren't going to send out another message because we think that'll just trigger it to happen again. So my point in bringing this story up to you is, working at eBay, working in a highly scaled platform environment, working in an environment that we're touching millions of customers, launching millions of products thousands of products every single year, that there's this tendency to think that innovation and ops excellence are opposed. And maybe that's the whole point of this track that we're in. And my learning here is, and the idea of this chart was titled here, Debunking Myths, but I think it's really more of the false dilemma. And so what I want to kind of talk about here today is techniques for dealing with that false dilemma. Quick snapshot of eBay. Lots of big companies here. The thing that I'm constantly amazed about with eBay is just how many transactions, how many people, how many things happen. And so what we really deal with in my organization is change. That's what we're constantly consumed with, is how do we launch, as you can tell, 20 strategic initiatives a year. My team has hundreds of active projects launching new features, new services to customers every single week. So that's what we deal with. And when I find myself getting caught up in this dilemma between agility and operational excellence, I try to remind myself that that's a fallacy. It's not an either or. And so what I want to talk about today is 3 things that I try to use, that we try to use at eBay to help us remember how to bring these 2 worlds together. There's going to be something different today in what I do. I've been to a lot of great presentations over the past few days here, and many of them are conceptual and they're dealing at an enterprise level. How are we implementing operating systems and culture and methods? This presentation is going to be different. It's deliberately tactical. I'm going to give you real examples of real things we're doing. It's also intended to be practical. I think a lot of this, if you really believe in innovation, a lot of it is about the curiosity and the desire to learn. So I'm sharing with you, hoping I'll feel good if I see people write a note or come ask me a question, and equally, I'm going to feel good if you come up to me afterward and say, we've done some of what you're doing, and let's talk about that. I hope to learn with you too. So the 3 things that we're going to cover are how we use telling a story to break down this wall, how we focus on bringing the right tools to the job, and how we remember to be ourselves. So those will be the 3 things that I talk about. So probably all of us know that if you really want to do great stuff, start with the customer. Everywhere I've ever been, balanced scorecard, some version of that, what it is. And at the same time, while we all say that, I found it is the hardest thing to do. And it's the mistake that I make over and over and over again. And at eBay, it was no different. We wanted to start doing customer journey mapping. And this was how we started. Underneath this, we were mapping out the high-level experiences. Underneath this, we had detailed processes. We were doing the good, hard work of rolling up our sleeves and looking at the product, the service, everything else. And I have a whole bunch of analyst geeks like myself away with their SAS and their Minitab and their Excel, and we're doing all kinds of statistical study. We can tell you correlation, we can tell you causation, we can tell you second, third order effects, and we're so happy, we're begging for people to listen to us. Right? And here's some laughs, so I'm not the only one who's done this, right? You go run into them and say, let me tell you, I can understand how this works and where it's breaking. And then you get, that's interesting. Almost always followed by, and can you go do some more analysis about this bit right here? It's red, right? And we've all been there, right? Go do more analysis. And somewhere in there, we never connected. We never got the action that we knew behind this. And so some people on my team, far smarter than me, started coming up with this. And I apologize, because this is not actually the best representation of this in a PowerPoint format. But the idea here that I'd like you to take away with is be the customer. And this is past analyzing buckets of customers and our data that tells us how we look at them. The us versus them means you're not being the customer. But we are the customer. And in these examples, we developed through our customers' eyes stories. And if you look closely at this, Anne is a real customer. She has really done these transactions. Her sales velocity has been slowing down on eBay. These are real things happening to a real customer. These are real contacts she had with the service center, which coincide with us taking down her sales in multiple successions. So she called us on these occasions, and these are the actual calls, the actual emails where we talked to Anne. We started bringing these to meetings with people. It changed everything. It changed everything. In fact, so much so that on Monday and Tuesday of this week, I was facilitating some strategy and planning sessions with some of our executives. And when I was preparing with our COO for it, she said, we need the customer in the room. And this is one of the things I love about eBay. We will literally get the customer and bring them into these sessions. In this particular case, we brought in a number of, and we were deliberately searching for average calls, right? We weren't looking for the worst, we weren't looking for the best. We wanted to say, this is an experience that we give millions of times a month, right? This is what we want to do. And you're sitting in a room with senior vice presidents, executive vice presidents, and you're talking about strategy. And you talk about the priorities and the things that we're passionate about to improve the business and how we're going to achieve our goals and our budgets and all that other stuff. And let me tell you, listening to these customers was the most passionate, engaged conversations that we had. And this was Monday or Tuesday. And so my takeaway on this one is, you want to cut through that tension between innovation and ops excellence. Really listen to the customer. That's been a great learning for us. The next one is, how do we innovate in our environment? This I'm going to throw myself on the sword a little bit in front of here for Zal. Ironic that for those of you who are in the past presentation, what I'm about to show you, we are a living example of what he was just speaking about. A lot of my work is focused on our global contact centers. So we are dealing with a scheduled variable workforce, meaning every minute you take them off the floor is a non-productive hour, right? We're not servicing somebody. We're dealing with very global, very virtual processes. We're eBay. We like to build things in technology. The first answer is usually to solve it with a piece of software, even if you don't always understand the process, and we deal with that. And then there's a lot of complexity. So our solution to this has been a journey that I've probably been on personally for almost 20 years now. Zal, does that look familiar? This started right around the year 2000 in another business that I was in with very similar situations, right, which is virtual workforce. And what we started doing was taking people, instead of working in their virtual teams all the other places we were at, and putting them together. And you can tell this is old because of the computers and the paper on the wall and the red sticky notes, and you're right, you stick to the 4 basic colors at all times. But the idea here was, many things. First of all, very interested in flow. You have people working in a process together, and they can actually see how the work is flowing between them. And they're actually codifying and discussing. And what I've seen, and it reminds me a little bit of Jose's exercise yesterday with the golf ball, for those of you who saw that or did that. You know, when people see a process, when they touch a process, they're almost compelled to improve it. So if you can just do something that makes the process come to life, people want to fix it. It's just natural. I don't know what it is. You know, fast forward 17 years, and this is where we're at now, and I'm sure I'll be talking this out later about how we can get even further. You know, the computers are thinner and the people are prettier, so continuous improvement is everywhere. But we have other technology working for us now. We can actually study through time and motion, you know, differently. We actually bring software engineers into the room. My continuous improvement professionals function a lot like facilitators, getting people to problem solve. You know, what we found is if you can close that distance between the user or the customer and the people who build these tools and processes, if you can shrink that distance down, you know, you can be wildly effective. We've also found there's lots of applications for this, so you guys can pick this up afterward, but beyond just fixing problems, we've been able to do it for technology and innovation there. We've been able to do it for research and study different kinds of things. So it gives us the power of the people, the process, the tools, the data, everything we need. Lastly, I want to talk about be who we are. At eBay now for 6 years, we've been on this journey. We had lots of people fixing lots of things. We didn't really have a method behind that. We've probably taken somewhat the classic approach, and I think it was your presentation yesterday where we kind of talked about, you know, you learn stuff, and then as you reach a point of mastery, you realize you need to unlearn it, right? So we have a whole bunch of people. We hire a bunch of experts with black belts and those kind of things. We train an entire organization on how to do these things. But in the meantime, eBay's a very different place. eBay's very agnostic to method. Like, if it works, go fast, do it. People don't spend a lot of time talking about how, right? Speed to market is everything. I think that was talked about earlier in a session, right? What is agility, right? It's speed to getting value to the customer. People value a lot their experience and what they know. It's a very high knowledge-based workforce. You know, people want to ultimately do their job. And what we discover in all that, or someone's speaking. Well, the clicker's not working. There we go. We've reached a point in our journey where those textbook things that live over there and those eBay things that live over here are in opposition, and it's representing that agility versus ops excellence dilemma that we have. So now, and this is very real for us, we're dealing with the question, who is eBay? And how does this work here? You know, the Toyota way question, for lack of a better word. And for teams like mine that are earlier in the journey, we look at a GE or we look at a Honeywell or we look at a Toyota and we say, wow, they made it. And the irony is, I think if we talked to any of those people, they'd say, there is no making it. Right? It's a journey. It continues. And the wisdom maybe of all this stuff is, how do you do it your way? How do you do it your way? And we're at that point of our journey now, leveraging things that work really, really well for us. For example, here, rapid response is an idea of how do we engage the entire workforce in the things that have to be improved. And my organization builds a funnel and builds a way of turning those over. We measure them by how quickly we can do them and how fast you can complete them. And the satisfaction in the organization is palpable because people see their ideas go to their desktop. They see their ideas go to the customer. And so where we're at right now is what tools, what methods do we use because they work and they fit in our culture, and what do we use because they're part of our discipline and our practice. And in some sense, we put a curtain there and we say, you know what, that's the way we work, but here's what works in our culture, here's what works in our environment, and bringing people through that. So it's less about method, it's more about the business. So I have just one example of that. This is a real project, a real name. You know, part innovation is creativity too. I'm not the most creative guy in the world, but this one came from somewhere. Shakespeare on steroids. As I started the discussion, I talked about eBay sending out millions of emails. Well, there's also millions of different emails, because as it turns out at eBay, and for those of you who are customers, you probably experienced this, like whenever we want to do something, we send you an email. We'll fill up your email box every single day, right? Like more is better. There's no governance, there's no control, there's no plan. And you wake up one day and you discover, oh my gosh, we're just spamming people, and we told them this on Monday and we told them this on Tuesday, and it doesn't even match. We literally had thousands and thousands and thousands of messages going out. not rationalized for how they fit in the experience, and not rationalized for how they fit for content, and in this particular example, not rational for how they can be interpreted and understood by the customer. So in our rapid response efforts, we're getting people who own this content together with the people who can deploy this content, and we're making these kinds of improvements to thousands and thousands of messages. This is eBay messages here. And in this example, the other thing that's changing for us is optimizing around mobile. So we're sending out these messages that you literally can't read and can't make any sense, even though our business is crossing over to more mobile than anything else, and now optimizing for mobile. So with that, I'll kind of open it up to you for any questions that you have, or be around for the panel. But again, the idea here was to be tactical, to be practical, to show you some things we're doing at eBay that forces us to stop thinking about somehow innovation works against great ops excellence. Thank you.